Shalom, I'm Moriah Webster, and today we're going to look at the key to understanding the word of Yah. Yes, the word of Yehovah, the Creator, El Elyon. What's the key? Is there a key to understanding His word? And why is there so much confusion as to the meaning of the books commonly referred to as the Bible? To begin with, the Bible is not, nor never has been, a single book, but is a term used to refer to a collection of books. Because many fail to grasp this basic fact, many are confused. Many fail to realize there is no universally agreed upon grouping of these books. Various religious leaders made decisions long after the books were written as to which books they desired to group together to form what many now call the Bible. And moreover, the English word Bible comes from the Greek term biblos. Let's just take a look at the meaning of these words. First, we're going to go to Encyclopedia Britannica, and we're going to look at the word Bible, the sacred scriptures of Judaism and Christianity. The Christian Bible consists of the Old Testament and the New Testament, with the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox versions of the Old Testament being slightly larger because of their acceptance of certain books and parts of books considered apocryphal by Protestants. The Hebrew Bible includes only the books known to Christians as the Old Testament. The arrangement of the Jewish and Christian canons differ considerably. The Protestant and Roman Catholic arrangements more nearly match one another. Now let's just pause for a second and think about what we just read. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Bible is in itself a word that represents confusion. Because when we talk about the Bible, we don't know, are we talking about the books that Christians consider the Bible, which number, at least for Protestants, 66, more for Catholics? And that's because different church leaders came up with their own idea of what books they wanted to include in this mix of books. And even from a Hebrew perspective, should the word Bible be used? Should we be gathering and collecting and mixing a group of books together? And after all, what does the word Bible even mean? Why are we using this word? Where does this word even come from? Now, I said that it's supposedly Greek in origin. But let's take a look at the etymology of the word Bible and see if we get a better understanding of where this word came from. Using Etymology online, we can see here this article entitled Bible. And it says here, the scriptures of the Old and New Testaments, early 14th century of the Common Era. Okay, so right away, we know that here's a word that wasn't even being used prior to the 14th century of the Common Era. And so you have many people today who say, well, I believe in the Bible. Well, what did people believe in prior to the 14th century? See how confusing it is? Is the word Bible really a necessary word? And what does it actually mean? Because most people, when they think of the word Bible, they think of one book. They say, oh, well, that's the inspired book. That's the holy book. How can it be the holy book when the word Bible did not even exist? And this is not just a lesson in semantics. The point I'm making is we should not be mixing this grouping of books and calling it the Bible, because that confuses people into thinking there's only one book and all these books have the same authorship, that all these books are holy, that all these books are inspired by Yahweh. And nothing can be further from the truth. So we know now that this word Bible started to be used in the early part of the 14th century of the Common Era. They say it's an Anglo-Latin word, biblia, from Old French Bible, 13th century. And they say the Bible also made any large book, generally from medieval and late Latin biblia, the Bible. Neuter plural interpreted as a feminine singular, from phrase biblia sacra, holy books, which is a translation of a Greek, ta biblia, to hagia, the holy books. The Latin word is from the Greek one, biblion. And the word biblion, they say, means paper or scroll. Also, the ordinary word for a book as a division of a larger work. And then they say, see biblio. So let's take a quick look at biblio and see what that means. So the word biblio, okay, it says is a word forming element meaning book or sometimes Bible, from Greek biblion, paper or scroll. Also, the ordinary word for a book as a division of a larger work. Originally a diminutive of biblos, Egyptian papyrus. This is perhaps from Byblos, B-Y-B-L-O-S, a place name, the Phoenician port from which Egyptian papyrus was exported to Greece, modern Jabil in Lebanon. For sense evolution, compare with parchment. Or, they're not too sure, or the place name might be from the Greek word, which then would be probably of Egyptian origin. So that's why I said, is the word Bible Greek? Maybe not. Maybe it's Egyptian. But what does it actually mean? They don't really know. They think it refers to this port city, but somehow they went from Jabil to Byblos. They don't really know. Now, it's very possible that this word may have come from Hebrew. If it came from Hebrew, perhaps that's because it has the same consonants for a Hebrew root that means to be confused or mixed. See, when you mix things together, they're confused. Confusion, mixture. And the word in Hebrew that has these consonants, the same consonants as Byblos, bait, this l sound. Bait, lamed is a Hebrew word, Babel. Babylon, Biblion, Bavel. It's very, very possible that this term, Bible, is related to the very word Babel, which is a word that means you have mixed, you're babbling. You've mixed books together that don't belong together, and now we have confusion. And so one of the first things we need to do if we're going to get a clear understanding of the word of Yahweh is that we have to get rid of this mixture. We have to take the mixture apart. We have to put the books back in their original form, meaning we need to look at the books one by one and take them for what they actually mean. And so in this series, and it's going to take more than one video to explain the key to understanding the word of Yahweh, we're going to be looking at the word of Yahweh, and when we refer to the word of Yahweh, we're going to be mainly focusing on the books that we as Hebrews use and refer to as the Tanakh. But I want to make clear to you that even then, when we group books together, let's say, for example, we start off and we might say the books of the Torah, they're still separate books. It's not one book. There's no one book called the Torah. Keep that in mind. We might talk about the books of the prophets, Nevi'im. There's no one book of the prophets. No book. The book of the prophets never existed. We might talk about Ketuvim. These are conveniences of how we might think about these books. We might group them, but it doesn't mean that they should ever be bound in one binding. And binding these disparate books in one binding is part of what has led to the great deception and confusion in most people's minds. Because many people can't separate again the fact that these are not of equal importance or of equal origin. That the books written in Greek have nothing to do with the books that were written in Hebrew. They're not from the same source. They're not speaking about the same things. And they certainly are not the word of Yahweh. So here we're going to be talking about the word of Yahweh. We're going to understand how to understand and how to use these disparate books. These are different books. The purpose of each of these books. And how we may understand the word of Yah. Now, many people claim to believe in the words of the Tanakh, that is the Torah, the Nevi'im, that's the prophets, and the Ketuvim. However, even though people are reading the same words, they end up with a multitude of different interpretations. And it would seem, right, that the only way to resolve the confusion would be for the Creator to send us a prophet, perform great miracles, and only then would he be able to make his revelation known to mankind. In reality, this has happened already many times before. The Creator revealed himself to the first humans, Adam and Hawa. Hawa is her Hebrew name. Today, many think of her as Eve, but that's a mistranslation. That's a corruption. And out of respect, we should use the actual Hebrew names that we read of when we read the scriptures. And so Yahweh revealed himself to Adam and Hawa, and he gave them clear revelation. They didn't have confusion. He set before them two trees, a tree of life and a tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of death. Likewise, he has given his revelation to his servants throughout the ages. He chose the nation of Israel. He sent them a great prophet, Moshe. Marvelous miracles were performed, and Yahweh gave Israel a very clear revelation. Right? However, the revelation has been preserved for us down to this day, but just as with Adam and Hawa, the revelation is set before us with choice. As Moshe was inspired to write in Devarim chapter 30, verse 15, he said, and I quote from the Scriptures 2009 edition, I'll be using that translation consistently throughout this video, unless I note otherwise. He said, "See, I have set before you today life and good, and death and evil." Confusion is the result of making the wrong choice. If we want to understand the word of Yahweh, his clear revelation, then we simply need to make the right choice, which is, that means we need to resolve to live by his word. And if we do that, the revelation will be clear. Obedience is the key. As King David was inspired to write and say in the Tehillim chapter 111, verse 10, he said, "The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom." That's where wisdom begins. It begins with the fear, meaning that awe, that ultimate respect, that real willingness to actually do what Yahweh says. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. That's when we begin to understand what's going on. He says a good understanding, or all those doing them have a good understanding. We get a good understanding when we do what Yahweh says. We keep his commandments. We walk in his ways. Then we get the understanding. He finished that verse saying his praise is standing forever. Yes. Tehilatho lomedeth la'ad. In Hebrew, we say Reshith Chokmah Yirath Yehovah Sekel Tov L'Kol Osehem Tehilatho Omedeth la'ad. Very, very important foundational verse. Because if we're going to have the key to understanding the Torah, it starts with the fear of Yahweh. It starts with a willingness. The fear of Yahweh can be described as a willingness to humble ourselves before him. A willingness to really want to do what he says. A willingness to accept that what he says is right and correct. When we have that, when we're trying to really understand his will, he's not going to hide it from us. Yahweh is not trying to trick you. He's not trying to trip you up. He's not trying to deceive you. He's not going to say one thing and then deceive you with that and later on tell you something exactly the opposite. That would be him trying to trick you. Yahweh isn't trying to trick us. When he tells us something we should do and it's for our good, we can believe him. If he says keep Shabbat, that's for your good. He made it for mankind. He made Shabbat not when Israel was made as a nation. He made it when Adam was made. Right after the first humans were made. When he made Adam, it says the seventh day he rested and blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, made it holy. He made Shabbat by resting in it. It was a gift for human beings, all mankind. Everyone should keep Shabbat. He wasn't trying to deceive Adam. He certainly, when he put that as the fourth commandment, he wasn't trying to deceive the children of Israel or any people that he's in covenant relationship with. And so there's no idea anywhere in the inspired word of Yahweh that somehow Shabbat is done away. If you read that, then you're certainly reading something that is not the clear word of Yahweh. The clear word of Yahweh stands firm. It's all consistent, and when we're willing to obey him, we're going to see that that's the key of making it clear. Keeping the commandments is the key to understanding the revelation of Yahweh. That fact can't be overstated. The greater our resolve to obey him, the clearer our vision will be of his will. As stated, Yahweh revealed his will, and it's preserved in his word. All we need to do now is clearly understand what his word is. And yet, as clear as what I'm saying may be, here's where many people stumble and fall. Many people can't find the clear revelation. They can't really understand what his word is. But the real reason is the key we've just been talking about. Because they're not really willing to obey him. Let me explain that a little bit more. Let's turn to a prophet Yeshayahu. He got revelation that makes this clear, makes it clear as to why people can't find the clear instructions from Yahweh. Let's read what the prophet Yeshayahu has to say. He said, and I'm going to be reading from Yeshayahu chapter 29, verses 9 through 13. He said, "They are drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For Yahweh has poured out on you the spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, the prophets. And he has covered your heads, the seers. And the entire vision is to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which men give to one who knows books, saying, read this, please. And he said, I am unable to read, for it is sealed. And the book is given to one who does not know books, saying, read this, please. And he said, I have not known books. And Yahweh says, because this people has drawn near with its mouth, and with its lips they have esteemed me, and it has kept its heart far from me, and their fear of me has become a command of men that is taught. Do you grasp what the prophet Yeshayahu is explaining here? If you go to Yahweh with lip service, that's not going to suffice to understand the scriptures. It's going to seem dark. It's going to be like giving a book to somebody who can't read. I don't know what's being said. It's like your eyes will be covered. It's like you can no longer see. But the reason why you seem like you can't see is because you really didn't want to see in the first place. You're going to welcome the confusion because you really don't want the scripture to be clear, because deep down in your heart, you really don't want to obey. You see, if it's clear, that may mean you have to change the way you're living. And that's why if we are half-hearted in our desire to obey, the book will seem sealed and we will be confused and unable to see what is clearly revealed. On the other hand, though, if we sincerely desire to obey, the revelation will become clear and we will see what Yahweh commands. In addition to fearing Yahweh and sincerely desiring to obey his commands, we need to understand the right way to study the scriptures. In short, we need to start with the most concrete words and then use those most concrete words as the lens by which we understand that which may be less clear, or shall we say more obscure. What we're going to do now is see that the clearest revelation to mankind are the words contained in what we commonly refer to as the Ten Commandments. These commandments must serve as the lens by which we see everything else. Moshe instructed us to use the words of the Aseret HaDvarim, that is the Ten Commandments, the words written on 2 tables of stone, exactly this way. In his final message to Yisrael before he died, recorded for us today in the book of Devarim, Moshe elucidates the meaning of the first 4 books of the Torah. In his explanation, in chapter 5, he recounts the revelation. And when we say the revelation, we refer specifically to that moment when Yahweh came down from heaven onto Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. And when he came down on Har Sinai, he spoke in the hearing of all Yisrael. They all heard his voice. That was the moment of the revelation. And what did he speak? He spoke the words written on the 2 tables of stone. Then in chapter 6, speaking of those most important words, Moshe says this, recounting that event. He says, and these words, which I am commanding you today, I just reminded you of in chapter 5, these words shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. We read of that in Devarim chapter 6, verses 6 through 9. Notice Moshe says the commandments should be as frontlets between our eyes. They should guide our outlook, the way we view things. They should influence what we do. You see, if it's as a frontlet between your eyes, our outlook should be impacted. If it's basically bound on our arm, on our hand, it should affect what we do, how we live. We should talk about it when we lie down, when we rise up. It should be on the doorpost. Okay? That's a mezuzah, is a doorpost. A mezuzah is not a little box. We're going to talk about that later when we get towards the end of this series. We're going to talk about what should be on your mezuzah, which is your doorpost. It should be, as it was anciently, the Asereth Hadvarim. That's what we're reading here. Why? Because it should really reflect what you stand for. You should see it when you go out. You should be reminded of it when you come in. These words, the Asereth Hadvarim, what was written in stone, what was spoken to all Yisrael, those are the most important words ever spoken in the hearing of mankind. Now, the mistake many people make is to build teachings on obscure or hard to understand verses plucked out of the Proverbs or the Psalms or some other prophet, and they use those verses to contradict what is clear and revealed and written in stone. That which should be no controversy at all. Like I said, doing so is analogous to putting blinders in your eyes, or like think about putting on some really, really dark shades, and then trying to use that viewpoint to understand what would otherwise be clear. That's the reverse of using the commandments as Moshe described. And if we approach the reading of the scriptures that way, if we try to approach trying to understand the will of Yahweh that way, our understanding will be darkened, just as Yeshayahu said. Our understanding will be confused. However, if our goal is to understand what Yahweh is saying, that's really what you want in life. You want to understand what he's saying because you love Yahweh and you fear him and you want to do his will, then we have to start with the clearest and the most important revelation, the commandments. Focus on the solid, the concrete, the clearest instructions from Yahweh. Now this brings us to a point. Are some words in the Tanakh more important than others? We're going to answer that question in part 2. We're going to close it off right here. But join me for part 2. We're going to go into depth to understand, are some words of the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, more important than others, more binding than others, more important for us and more foundational for us? We're going to understand that. Join me again for part 2 on this series of the key to understanding the word of Yahweh. For more information, look at the comments and follow the links. Shalom, shalom.